I'm Robert Timmons, and you're watching Weekly Words. What's up, everybody? Thank you for checking out this week's episode of Weekly Words. I hope that these last 2 weeks have been phenomenal for you. We have officially reached the halfway point of 2019, and I can't believe it. But since we're here, I want to encourage everybody to do a mid-year recap of your vision board. Are you reaching your goals? Are you on track to reach your goals by the time this year is over? Do you need to reallocate your time or reallocate the time spent for a particular goal? And is it going to still be able to be finished in 2019? Or will it extend on to 2020? These are questions that only you can answer, and I encourage you to look at your vision board and see where you are. I know for me, there are some things I've already accomplished. There's some things that I'm still working on. And there's some things that I might not be able to get for 2019, but I can definitely get in 2020. So I encourage you to revisit your vision board and mark the progress that you're making. And if you have any questions, let me know, because hopefully we can continue this walk together. But let's go ahead and get started with this week's content. So I'm sure over the last couple of years that you've heard or said the phrase YOLO, meaning you only live once. This phrase is something that people use oftentimes whenever they're on the fence about partaking in a certain event, activity, or action. And typically it's used meaning to seize the moment or seize the opportunity because we don't know if we're ever going to get the chance in the future again, right? Or maybe it's something that we know that we're probably going to regret tomorrow, but at least we can say that we're living in the moment today and that we are experiencing and enjoying life. But I want to challenge that mindset and that framework of thinking by referencing a scripture in Ecclesiastes chapter 11, starting with verse 9. Ecclesiastes chapter 11, verse 9 says, "You who are young, be happy while you are young, and let your heart give you joy in days of your youth. Follow the ways of your heart and whatever your eye sees. But know that for all these things, God will bring you into judgment." So I think it's so funny how the first part of this scripture is pretty much in line with YOLO. It says, "You who are young, be happy while you are young. Let your heart give you joy in the days of your life. Follow the ways of your heart in whatever your eyes see." It's pretty much saying, do what brings you joy. Go after what you want. Do what your heart desires. Follow your eyes. Live your best life. But if you keep reading, you'll see that there is a comma and the word "but" after that first part. And we know that "but" always negates or contradicts what came before it. So if you keep reading, you'll see it says, "But know for all these things, God will bring you into judgment." Now, when I read this, I didn't read it as like, oh my gosh, I gotta look over my shoulders. I gotta always talk politely. Like I gotta put on like this front and all this kind of stuff because I'm burdened by God judging me and looking at me. I saw it more of a reminder for the responsibility that comes with our lives, right? Because if you look at it, this first verse is saying that we have freedom, right? God has given us freedom, free will, freedom of choice, but with that freedom comes responsibility. See, our freedom is connected to responsibility. So let's talk about this in the kind of a practical sense. So I think about whenever I was in high school when I first got my license, my parents gave me the opportunity to drive their car, right? I had the freedom to go wherever I want. I had the car, I had the keys, I had my ID. I can go wherever. But with that freedom, there was a realistic responsibility attached to it. Right? Because I spoke to my parents and we talked about where I was going and about what time I would be back. I knew that if I went, I would have to put gas in the car. Depending on which highway I got on, might have to pay a toll, so I would have to have money on me. I had to obey the speed limit because if I didn't, I could get pulled over and get a ticket and get a fine. Even though I had the freedom to go wherever I wanted, wherever my heart desired, it was still attached to a responsibility so that I would still be able to maintain that for the future. Because if I didn't obey the law or obey, the agreement I had with my parents, that could either hinder that experience in that moment, or it could hinder my future freedoms. So my freedom was attached to a responsibility. Okay, so just like in that example, I think that it's very similar with God. Like, he's given us the car of our life to be able to go off and spend time with who we want to spend time with, have fun when we want to have fun, to live our life with joy and happiness, right? But there's also responsibility attached to that. And I don't just mean the responsibility that you have of like paying your bills and watching your kids and going to work. Like, I'm talking about the responsibility that God has given you for your purpose, for your calling, the things that he's given you authority and stewardship over. How are you honoring those things? I want to point out that I'm not here to tell you what your responsibility is, but to help you become aware of it so that you're still honoring that in your freedom. Because I think oftentimes it's not that we don't have a heart to handle our responsibilities, but it's that we don't give them we don't give them priority over our freedom. So in the example of the car, maybe it was in my heart and I knew my responsibility of putting gas in the car and I had the money, but I was like, I'll do it after I get back, or I'll do it after I make it there, I'll do it after whatever. And it turns out that I don't do the right calculations, and so I end up stranded on the side of the street because I did not get gas. What if the same thing is like that in our lives, where we have the heart and the posture to pray and to give and to tithe and to love, but we do the freedom priority first and we never get around to those things? Maybe we need to shift our perspective and focus on the responsibility and the priority first, and then enjoy our freedom. So again, I'm not here to tell you what your responsibility is, but I'm just encouraging you to become aware of the responsibility that is attached to your freedom that God has given you, right? We all have responsibility and we all have freedom. And we have to realize that our actions and our decisions have consequences, both good and bad. So just like in the past, I've spoken about sowing positivity now to reap positivity later, reap fruits later. We can also sow negative things now and reap negativity later. So be mindful of what you're sowing in this moment and how you're preparing yourself for your future. And I encourage you to ask the question, how are you walking in your freedom? How are you living your life? What are you giving priority to? And how are you upholding the responsibility that God has placed in your life and the things that he's given you authority over? Walk in your freedom, but know that it is attached to responsibility. Hey, what's up everybody? Thank you for checking out this week's episode of Weekly Words. I pray that you thoroughly enjoyed it and got something positive from it. If you have any questions or suggestions or things for me to speak on in the future, feel free to email me at weeklywordsrt@gmail.com. Again, that's weeklywordsrt@gmail.com. I hope you have a great couple of weeks, and I'll see you back here next time for our next episode in July.